All that shortly, but first, kickstarting with some breaking developments coming in right this minute. The United States is turning the heat on Pakistan days after Donald Trump's scathing tweet and United States blocking $255 million in military aid to Pakistan. The Donald Trump administration has now handed a list of 27 members of the Haqqani network to Pakistan. The US has asked Pakistan to hand them these members. The US has set a deadline of January 15th, or else it will impose sanctions on Pakistan. Our international correspondent Ramesh Ramachandran is now joining us on the broadcast from the newsroom for more on this. Ramesh, what more do we know on that list that's now been handed over by the United States to Pakistan, upping the ante against Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism?
Molly, 2 days ago, Washington had warned of more actions against Pakistan over the next 24 to 48 hours, and that warning and action has now become a reality. 4 points made by the US in its warning and ultimatum to Pakistan. One, that the list of the terrorists contains 27 members of the Haqqani network. The Haqqani network operates primarily at the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. The second point is the US has categorically told Pakistan, hand them over to us or else we will come and kill them on your territory. Third point, sanctions may be imposed on Pakistan for its complicity and duplicity on the issue of terrorism. And last but not the least, an ultimatum or a deadline, act before the 15th of January. That's the news coming in from Washington this moment.
Ramesh, many have spoken of Pakistan's statements and verbal warnings as being a mere rhetoric. Do we see this time around this action being United States walking the talk?
Well, Molly, from India's perspective, the obvious question to ask is, what about those groups operating against India? What about Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jamaat-ud-Dawa, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Hafiz Saeed, Masood Azhar, you name it? The US is so far been silent on those groups, and there's a contradiction in terms here. Remember, Molly, H.R. McMaster has just said in Washington that Pakistan, we know Pakistan is selective in its approach to terrorism, and that is acting only against certain groups. So the obvious question is, why this discrimination? And India says Pakistan must not and cannot discriminate against terror groups. It should act against both groups operating against Afghanistan as well as India.
The frustration that H.R. McMaster has also spoken of, Ramesh, has come to the forefront time and again. But this time around, we're seeing concrete action in a way that the United States is seeking from Pakistan yet again. That list of 27 members of the Haqqani network. But what does that really mean for India, Ramesh?
Well, Molly, very clearly, India has been in a wait and watch mode all these weeks and months, because primarily Trump's interest and focus lies in ensuring the success of the new South Asia strategy in Afghanistan. And to that extent, he's focusing on ensuring his success of his strategy in that part of the world, not with regard to those groups operating or targeting India. And India says the US can do better than that, in that Haqqani network, Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Jamaat-ud-Dawa, they're all cut from the same cloth, as it were, and that there are no good or bad terrorists, and that the US and Pakistan must together act against all terror groups operating on Pakistani soil, make Pakistan sever its ties with terror groups and deny them safe havens on its territory.
Right, stay with me, just hold that thought there, Ramesh. Also joining us on the broadcast is Lieutenant General Raj Qadian, a defense expert. Let's get in further perspectives. What, according to you, is the reading of this latest move by the United States? Of course, it's turning the heat on Pakistan, but what does this really mean for India, according to you, sir?
I think India, we of course feel happy because Pakistan has been put in the spot. But I don't think US has any interest in LET and Jaish-e-Mohammed. They are not bothering US forces in Afghanistan. The reality is that US is pursuing her own interests. They are after Haqqani networks, the sanctuaries for which are being provided by Pakistan. And they are hitting American forces in Afghanistan. That is what is hurting them. In a way, it is good that once Pakistan is compelled to act against terrorism, then I think every group will come into the loop. But with what the US has said specifically is pertaining to Afghanistan, the groups that are operating in Pakistan, and they're being sheltered on the western part of Pakistan. The Pakistan has no one else to blame. They should have seen it coming ever since in August when America announced its Asia policy. After that, the Secretary of State visited Pakistan and gave them a warning. The Defense Secretary visited and gave them a warning. In November, when they released Hafiz Saeed, Americans again warned, told them to put him behind the bars again because he carries a $10 million award. But Americans didn't see the light of the day. Therefore, the tweet on 1st January by Trump, even if you ignore the harsh language which he has used, but it was the reality that Pakistan can no longer get away by playing a duplicitous game, take American money and act against their interests. They've been doing it for years. Osama bin Laden was caught from under the nose of the military academy that America knows. But they're still tolerating, hoping that they will perhaps improve.
Right.
Now, if they've given them a deadline of 15 January, that means Americans mean to walk the talk.
Okay.
So far, they were only verbally threatening. And if Pakistan does not show any positive action by 15, then perhaps you can see American drones coming into Pakistan territory and attacking those safe havens which Pakistan is providing.
Let me just also take that across to Lieutenant General Ravi Sahani, defense expert, also who's joining us on the broadcast. Lieutenant General Raj Qadian, his sentiment largely being that this is America's walking the talk. Do you agree with that? And this, of course, is the latest move that the United States has made in order to up the ante against Pakistan.
No, I think I partially agree because thank God that there has been a follow-up by the Americans after so many empty threats. But I do wish that the threat was not confined only to the Haqqani, the group, and it was universal. I wish they had talked more about the India-centric terrorist groups too, because that would mean that they are trying to tell them that the Pakistanis can no more be selective as far as dealing with the homegrown terrorists. But in any case, I think that, as General Qadian said, that thank God now it is being followed by action. So hopefully, Pakistan will not be allowed to get away. And every time Pakistan is warned, they won't be able to give the famous excuse that they are doing the maximum insofar as the anti-terrorism, actions are concerned. One of the reasons why this has happened, I suppose, is because in the American establishment, we have people like the Defense Secretary, NSA, etc., who have suffered firsthand, who have seen their own troops being, murdered by the Pakistani grown and encouraged jihadis. So that's a welcome development. Hopefully, the rest of the Western countries also will follow.
A welcome development, Lieutenant General Ravi Sahani and Lieutenant General Raj Qadian. Please hold those thoughts. I'll just come back to you. Ramesh, we've seen several statements that the United States has released, several warnings that it has made when it comes to Pakistan harboring terrorism. It has instructed Pakistan to take action. But what makes this statement stand out in many respects is one, the stern threat of adhering to the deadline of January 15th. Hand them to us, or if you cannot, we will come and kill them.
Indeed, and that's exactly what many an American official had warned Pakistan all throughout last year, the first year of Trump presidency. But more important, Molly, it is understandable that all countries, the US included, will care and protect their own national interests. But what is baffling to an Indian watcher of India-US relationship is that here is a man, he's a terrorist, a globally designated terrorist, Hafiz Saeed, who is wanted in India and around the world for the Mumbai attack, which claimed the lives of more than 100 Indians, including American and Israeli nationals. And yet the US treats those groups, especially LET, with kid gloves. So it's completely, baffling for Indian policymakers as to why the US is so reluctant to call Pakistan's bluff on the issue of those terror groups operating against India in particular. And to my mind, that's the biggest challenge before India in making the US lean on Pakistan, to make Pakistan desist from using terror as state policy and to make it sever links with terror groups and deny them safe havens on its territory.
Even as you rightly pointed out, Ramesh, even when it comes to Hafiz Saeed, we've seen a lot of rhetoric over the past few months and weeks when it comes to the warnings that the United States has issued to Pakistan. Lieutenant General Raj Qadian, if you would like to come up on that point, on how Hafiz Saeed, what about Hafiz Saeed? What about the kind of evidence that has already been provided by the Indian authorities, dossier after dossier, which Pakistan refuses to acknowledge, and United States only seems to be dragging its feet with mere rhetoric when it comes to Hafiz Saeed?
There is no dearth of evidence against Hafiz Saeed. His involvement in the Bombay attack was clear. Jaish-e-Mohammed's involvement in the Pathankot was unmistakable. But evidence is as good as Pakistan wants to accept it. If they keep denying what is blatantly clear to the whole world, not only to India, then there's nothing that can be said about a country like Pakistan. So we might, with the American action coming in, we might gain on the rebound, but I don't think Americans, General Sani also agrees that every country follows policy in its national interest. American national interest today lies in Afghanistan because the war is becoming increasingly unpopular. The troops are suffering casualties, and Americans are not so benevolent as far as the death of the soldiers are concerned as some other countries may be. So Trump is coming under pressure. He wants some action by Pakistan. Pakistan's active cooperation in curbing the Haqqani and other networks that are operating against American forces in Afghanistan. We might gain. If I read a news item from Pakistan media yesterday correctly, the defense minister has finally accepted that, yes, Hafiz Saeed is a terrorist. His network that is running under the garb of a social organization, a welfare organization, has links with terrorism. And what is furthermore damaging, Pakistan should take note of it, that his hand was also there in the Peshawar attack on the school, on the army school. And so far, they have launched an army operation. They call it, I think, Asle Fasad or something like that. And they were so far tackling the sleeper network that Hafiz Saeed and his, they say, Muhammad, that whatever organization has in Pakistan, and now they are openly going to tackle him. Let us hope that news item is correct. There is no confirmation of it today in the media, but yesterday it was said in the Pakistani media itself that Khurram Dastagir, has the Pakistani defense minister indicated that it is admitted that he is a terrorist and his organization was involved even in the Peshawar attack. That's not only to India but also to Pakistan.
Right, and Ramesh, if I can get you in on that front, United States' dilemma when it comes to Pakistan, making its transition to frustration as a sentiment that's also been echoed by the H.R. McMaster in that latest statement. But that statement earlier on made by H.R. McMaster also ends with how United States is hopeful of Pakistan's support when it comes to the war in Afghanistan. So it's of course the tightrope that United States is walking, but this time around, this latest threat, this latest warning comes with the expectance of a concrete action. Pakistan, of course, continues to live in denial.
Molly, it's interesting you should mention about H.R. McMaster, the U.S. National Security Advisor, because what did McMaster say today? He says Trump is frustrated with Pakistan's attitude and behavior. He went on to say that Pakistan continues to support terror and terrorist groups and that Pakistan is being selective in its approach to combating terrorism. And therefore, it says Pakistan must not continue to use terror as state policy or foreign policy tool. And to my mind, he also went on to say, by the way, that Pakistan-US relationship cannot bear this weight of contradictions anymore. And yet we see the US being soft or mollycoddling Pakistan in trying to make it act against Haqqani network, but at the expense of those groups operating against India. And India is among the oldest victims of terrorism. the first country in the world, to my reckoning, which faced terrorism even before the word terrorism came into the lexicon after the 9/11 attacks in the US. So India has a valid reason to say the epicenter of terrorism in its immediate neighborhood, especially Pakistan, and that the world must unite to call Pakistan's bluff on this count before it is too late.
We're going to leave it there for the moment, though that remains our top focus in our later editions as well. Ramesh Ramachandran, Lieutenant General Raj Kadian and Lieutenant General Ravi Sahani, appreciate you joining us with all of those perspectives and inputs.